This lesson is going to cover the Texas Studies Weekly newspaper over money and markets. So you can follow along with me in your newspaper and just keep up with me as we go, and we'll talk through this as we do that. Okay, we'll start out on page 1, money and markets. People earn money in many different ways, usually by working or by selling things. Many children get an allowance from their parents. What do people do with their money? So right now I want you to consider and think, do you get an allowance for chores at home? And if you do, what are some things that you do with that money? You can also talk to somebody else in your household about some of the things that you and your family do with the money that they earn or bring into the household. What is a market? I want you to pause it right there. Pause the video right there for a second and talk to somebody about what you think a market is. Okay, well, if you said that a market is a place where you buy groceries, you're right, because a lot of times we do say, just like this little piggy went to market, this little piggy stayed home. When we do this little piggy, that little piggy went to market, they went to what we know as the store. So a lot of times when we hear market, we do think of like we're going to the grocery store. However, there are other kinds of markets too. Markets help people get the things they want and need. And we're going to talk a little bit further about market and what exactly that means as it relates to America and our economy and other countries and how our economies work together. Okay, so let's go ahead and move over and take a look at page 2. A market is not always a store. Everyone who buys or sells goods or services is part of a market. Markets can include just a few neighbors or millions of people from many different countries, and that's what we just discussed. So we live in a country that buys, sells, trades with other countries, and so we are all part of this big marketplace, and that is part of what keeps our economy going. And you may remember we've talked about economy all year long. Economy means the way that we buy, sell, or trade to keep our livelihood, to keep going. Okay? Right now, our economy's in a bit of a slump because there are a lot of people that are home and they're not able to work, and therefore money's not being pumped into our market, and so things are slowing down a little bit. So that's something to consider as far as the state that we're in right now, or the condition that we're in right now as a country. Most people use money to pay their bills and to buy things their families need. Many people also save some money for the future. Some people save money to buy things like a car or a house. Okay, so that buying and purchasing of things, saving of money, that's all part of the coming and going of money in and out of our market, which, as we just talked about, is not just a little grocery store, but this big, huge marketplace between the country we live in and other countries, and the buying and selling of things. Banks will loan you money when you need it. The bank will charge you interest on the loan. Interest is a fee someone pays for using money. When you borrow money, you have to sign papers that say you will pay it back. Okay, so this is a picture of a lady. She's at the bank. She's probably going to take out a loan. This guy's walking her through that process. And basically, when you go to the bank and you say, I need to borrow some money, you are using the bank's money, and so you have to pay a fee. You have to pay interest. Now, listen to what happens here when you have a savings account at a bank. Banks are safe places to keep your money. If you put money in the bank, you will earn interest. The bank is using your money, so they pay the fee. Okay, so you go get a loan, you borrow money, you pay the interest fee. If you take your money to the bank and you put it in, let's say, a savings account, the bank is then using your money maybe to help other people, and because of that, they are then paying you interest for using your money. Okay, so those are some of the ways that banks can help us. And you're going to be asked on the backside a question specifically about banks, and this is going to be where you can find those answers. Okay? All right, next page. People around the world depend on each other. The United States does not produce everything our citizens need and want. We get goods from other countries. We send goods to markets in other countries too, and we've talked about that before. We do not make everything that we use in-house right here in America. There's lots of things that we use and that we need that we get from other countries. And so then again, we're entering back into that marketplace of buying, selling, trading goods with other countries so that we have the things that we need. The price of a resource, something people can use, depends on two things. It depends on how much of it there is for people to buy. That's called supply. It also depends on how many people want or need that resource. That's called demand. When the supply is low and the demand is high, the price goes up. So let's just say that everybody wants a new Diary of a Wimpy Kid book that just came out. There's only so many of those that are made, and so lots of people want them, and so they're able to charge a higher price for those things because there's only so many being made. Everybody might want that. So that's how supply demand works. If there's a big supply of Diary of a Wimpy Kid books a few months from now, and everybody already has them, nobody wants them anymore, then the prices then can drop at that time because there's a big supply. Not everybody wants it. They drop the price to try to sell what they have. So that's a little bit what that looks like and how that works, and kind of determines some of the prices that we pay for the things that we buy. Many people use credit cards. Credit cards let you buy something now and pay for it later. You will often have to pay interest too. Banks give credit cards to people who agree to pay for the things they buy. Now, if you look carefully at this picture, this might look like something that people in your house use a lot that's not actually a credit card. They may actually be using a debit card, and a debit card can work like a credit card, except it's money coming straight out of the bank account. So you're not borrowing anybody's money when you use those. You are taking your money straight out of your account. So I just want to point that out, because just because you see your parent or your guardian or whoever using that, that doesn't mean they're using a credit card and actually borrowing money. They could be using it as a debit card coming straight out of their bank account. Credit cards can be good, but they can also be bad. Credit cards are great if you are able to get a credit card, use it, and pay it back every month where you don't have to pay interest. But if you just go get a credit card and you spend all the money on it and you can't pay it back, you're paying interest and you're going to end up hurting your credit, and that's really not a good thing. So debit cards are one thing that we use because, again, it comes straight out of your bank account. Credit cards, a whole nother thing, and they're kind of like, I personally don't have any credit cards because I don't want to have to owe that. I don't want to have to pay interest to the credit card company, so I don't. But different people do different things with that. Okay, not very long ago, every country in Europe had a different kind of money. In 2002, some European countries decided that it would be easier if they used the same kind of money. Today, people in France, Germany, Italy, and many other countries use the euro. And this is a picture of the coins that they're referring to when they're talking about euro. So what that would have been like for Europe, it would have been like something we talked about earlier in the year. If every single state in America used a different kind of money, we would have a really difficult money system to work through. So every state in America uses the same bills and the same coins. Well, that's what was happening in Europe. These different places in Europe were using different kinds of money, and it was confusing. So they finally all came together and agreed that they would all just use the euro over in Europe. Okay, let's jump to the back to your assignments. Okay. So you've got a crossword here, so you need to go ahead and read through the clues. You do have a word bank to help you with that. Remember, before you ever even do the crossword, okay, I want you to go through, I want you to read, I want you to fill in each of the blanks first. All right, once you have filled in the blanks, showing me that you have read the clues and actually filled in the right word, then you can go ahead and do the crossword puzzle, keeping in mind that this right here, this is the part that I grade. I'm not worried about this. This is the part that I'm grading. Okay, this is the most important part to me. All right, down here you have a map of Europe. All right, and this is going to ask you to find France, Germany, and Italy on the map. Okay, we sent you with some crayons. If you have colored pencils, you can use those as well. Use different colors to fill in the 3 different countries. Okay, and then it asks you what is the name of the money they use. Put that in a complete sentence. They use the, fill in the blank, end it with punctuation. Okay, all right, then this last section, read the articles on page 2 about banks again. Remember, there were 2 little articles about banks, and I pointed them out on the other page. Explain some ways banks help people. So I want you to come up with 2 different ways that banks help us, and I want you to put those ways in complete sentences. Okay, if you have any questions about this assignment, let me know.